I'm Chris Hopkins, 3 Seasons Landscape Group, and I'm a hardscaper.
Welcome to the I Am a Hardscaper series on the How to Hardscape podcast, where we sit down and interview a hardscape business owner and do a deep dive on how they became a hardscaper and how they operate their business. And today's episode is brought to you by IQ Power Tools. They manufacture a comprehensive range of innovative power tools with integrated dust collection systems. Check them out at iqpowertools.com. And today we're joined by Chris of 3 Seasons Landscapes for this I Am a Hardscaper episode. It's actually an in-person interview that we did where I spent a day in the life and we took some time to sit down to do this podcast in his office. So forgive the audio quality. There is some reverberation, but it is most definitely a quality discussion on business with Chris. So without further ado, let's get into it. All right, Chris, let's get to know yourself a little bit more, who you are, how you got started in this industry. Can you give our audience a little bit of, a history lesson about yourself and how you got started?
Yeah, so Chris Hopkins here. Basically, my story, and everyone has a story, which is always the interesting part about getting to know different people in the industry. Mine's probably no different than a lot of other people that you talk to, in the sense that I started young. It's been years and years of hard work to get to where I am today and to get my business to where I am today. My story in a nutshell, I come from a family of, hardworking, entrepreneurial-based people who owned, multiple different businesses of vast types, from custom home building companies to bakeries. A lot of my family members are teachers, so I've always been around the hard work and the work ethic and the mentorship side of things. And when I was in high school, I basically said to myself, I'd rather work for $10 an hour for myself than work for $10 an hour for somebody else, and just have the flexibility and the freedom to work extremely hard when I need to and take a day off here or there when I need to as well. So basically started my business when I was 15 or 16 years old, had one truck. It was a 1997 GMC Sonoma, and started off doing small construction projects, nothing larger than I thought I could take on with myself and a couple of friends, a small fence, some sodding, garden edging, just the small stuff that everyone has to do when they start out their business to get their name out there. And went to Mohawk College in Hamilton for architectural engineering for 4 years after that. By the time I started Mohawk, I had 4 guys working for me full time. And I was managing my business and the different projects we had on the go while being full time in school, which was obviously a challenge. And through that schooling, I had a co-op opportunity at a big commercial general contractor here in Hamilton, which I took advantage of, and actually ended up working there full time for 2 years after school, again, while running my business. So it was definitely a grind. Obviously, it's, any day is a grind if you talk to any hardscaper, but definitely that was the time when I put in the most amount of effort every single day to make sure we were being successful and trying to get as much experience and build relationships with suppliers and clients and friends and other contractors and brands. And then basically I had to make the decision a few years ago, do I stop landscaping and continue a career in the commercial construction industry as a project coordinator or future project manager, or do I quit that and continue focusing on my business? And obviously I continued focusing on my business and never looked back. 4 or 5 years later now, from that point, we're 25 employees, 9 or 10 trucks. We have a great shop facility. We've basically doubled our business in terms of revenue and size every year for the past 4 years. That trend will stop soon, because obviously once you get to a certain size, it's very unfeasible or unmanageable to successfully double your business every year. But things are going well, and I love getting up every day and coming to work. And we've really been successful and had really good growth because of the great employees that we have and the commitment we have and the culture we've developed, and also the relationships we've built with suppliers and trades and homeowners over the past, call it 10 years. I'm 26 now, so basically 10 years but really taken 10 years of relationships and put it into the last 4 or 5 years. So it's been a long time coming, but we've really put all of our hard work to kind of our best foot forward the last 5 years in terms of growth and really figuring out where we want to go with the business.
And Chris, we're doing this differently than I've ever done this before in terms of we've actually just done a ride along. I've already asked you most of these questions that I'm going to ask you again, which is interesting. But it's also an in-person interview. I haven't done a hardscaper interview that's in person, so this is great. Thanks for having me out to do this. But going back to when you first started your business as a younger person in the industry, what kind of friction did you experience with clients trying to sell yourself to them and sell that job? I'm sure that's much more difficult coming in as a younger person into the industry, trying to sell yourself as opposed to starting your business later in your life, right? What was that friction like, and how did you overcome that?
So I think that's a really good question. When I first started out, I had a mindset, like I had a pretty good head on my shoulders in terms of dealing with people and pricing and not selling myself short, but making sure that we're not, gouging people, that type of thing. So we were very fair from the beginning, but one thing I would say is I was very aware that, if I, for some reason, got a call to go meet with somebody for a $100,000 pool job, like this wasn't something that I could take on. I was in high school or I was in college. Like it's something that I was always very careful about, that whoever I committed to going to meet with or put together an estimate package for, I knew that we could do the job if we got it. So then I could really focus on selling ourselves and our young mentality with our bit of experience for the simple jobs that we did price. So I never ran into too many issues with that because I was very mindful that the people I was going to be meeting with are jobs that we could successfully do. So it was very easy for me to market ourselves and sell ourselves to them. Whereas, anybody else in the industry knows if you're trying to grow or you're trying to do things too quick, it's very hard to convince other people that you can do something when you know that you physically can't. So I was always very honest about the work that we did and the work that we could do. And I would tell somebody if, something seemed too big for us. And usually it would work out pretty well. But there was a few instances where maybe even a simple project that we went to quote, the homeowner was very hesitant to work with us. And this was a number of years ago, obviously, almost 9 or 10 years ago now. So the industry was a lot different, and there was really only 3 or 4 key players in the landscape group around our area. So, they'd get quotes from those guys who'd been in business for like 30 years, and then you get Chris at 3 Seasons who's been in business for 2 years and shows up in a little 1997 pickup truck, and it's very hard to market ourselves versus them. But it was always a good learning experience to go and meet with people. And I even tell my guys in the office now, like within reason, as long as you're not wasting clients' time and they're not wasting your time, because there's always those tire kickers out there who want everything for nothing or want you to start in 2 weeks. And if you have a decent screening process in the office when people reach out for quotes or for designs, you can usually weed those people out pretty quick. But I always tell the guys in the office, it's still very important to meet with a lot of people, even if you're not 100% sure that they're going to be a right fit for you or you're going to be a right fit for them. It's just a good practice to go through meeting with clients, putting your name out there, because you never know what happens. Maybe you go and meet with somebody and it turns out they're the greatest client you've ever met, or they sound like the greatest client you've ever met on the phone, and you go and meet with them and it's like, well, it's not really what we do. This is kind of a lot of red flags. And you let them down gently, and then maybe they refer you to somebody else in the future.
Now, yeah, like getting in those reps, I guess starting out must have been a good learning experience for you, and then coming into it where you all now have guys going out there and meeting clients is good reps for them. You kind of see it as that trade-off. What was that first step in your growth where you decided like you're going to build this company, whether it was like at that moment where you were considering that commercial, working for somebody, as opposed to starting this or going all in with this landscaping company? What was it? I guess what I'm trying to ask is like, what was that moment where you decided to go all in with this landscaping company and grow it, as opposed to any other options that were on the table for you?
I think the moment was when we had a lot of work booked for this coming season, and I recognized that there was a really good opportunity to do some larger projects than we had ever done before, because we quoted them properly, we designed them, so we were going to do them, we knew that, but I wanted to make sure they went really well and they went exactly as planned. And I knew that in the back of my head, if I was, just running my company, not on the side, but because we had full-time employees, but on evenings and weekends and taking phone calls when I could, I knew that it wouldn't go as well as it could. And I knew that we may crash and burn at the end of the season if we didn't develop relationships with these specific sets of clients that we had fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work for that coming year. So I think that was really the defining moment when I said, like, this is it. This is now. If I don't do this now, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
So I recognized that opportunity. I took it, and we never looked back.
Nice. And then, so going from that stage, what was your ideal? I like that you mentioned, like, when you were starting out, if somebody came to you with like $100,000 project, you knew that wasn't meant for you. And I think that's like such an important aspect of owning a business, is knowing what to turn down and what to take on. How did that scale up from when you decided to go all in on the business? What was that ideal project to where you are today? What's that ideal project for you?
So it's a good question. Not something I've often thought about. It's always important to talk with people and reflect, I think. So this is good. But the ideal project, when we were at that point of kind of going all in and putting our best foot forward and really focusing on building relationships with everybody and growth, I think it was probably in the, call it $15,000 to $30,000 range. And obviously, as anybody else knows, price isn't always a depiction of the actual size of the job. It could just be, the $12,000 job with like a super expensive paver or a massive expensive water feature or something like that. But in general, $15,000 to $30,000 was probably our comfortable zone, which would mean we would probably self-perform most of it, and maybe there was like one trade on site, so like a deck guy to do a little deck, or an irrigation contractor, electrician, something like that. Whereas now, our bread and butter now is large-scale commercial projects where we're working for different municipalities like the city of Hamilton, the county of Brant, town of Oakville, something like that. In regards to, most of that would be park type projects, whether it's a big tree planting contract, mulching of city parks, building new parks, park renovations. So around the outdoor spaces that the city has that we have the opportunity to work on. And in terms of residential, our bread and butter is like, within reason, the bigger the better, but right now it's probably, I'd say $150,000 to $350,000 is our bread and butter residential jobs. Anything smaller in like the 90, and it's not small, it's still big, but the 90 to like 100K mark, right now, honestly, usually means that we're self-performing a lot and there's not really a lot of trades. What we love, because of my personal experience in project management and coordination and estimating, I love that side of construction. I like actually building things. I don't want to build somebody's 10 by 10 patio all day. I want to build something that we can be proud of. I want to, have an extension of people's houses outside and their lifestyle, with a pavilion and a pool house and a huge pool and lighting, irrigation, electrical, gas, like permits, minor variances, fencing, like you name it. The more elements in a project, the better we succeed and the more effective it is, because that's what we love. We love the operations side. We love the logistical side of things. We bring that sort of large-scale commercial mentality to the residential world, which is something that not a lot of people do, I think, because they don't really have the experience in it. But we also, in turn, bring that detail-oriented, client-specific residential side of things to the commercial world, which again, in the commercial side of things, not a lot of people have, because most of the commercial jobs that people do, whether it's for a factory or a park or a municipal service center, a retail plaza, those are contractors that all they do is work in there, so they lose touch with that detail-oriented residential side. So I think it's very key for us to keep both revenue streams and keep people very good on both sides of things, because it helps out in the long run. And clients on both sides of it have been very impressed and continue to be very impressed with those aspects that they're not used to seeing in those types of projects.
Right. Going back to when you were kind of first starting this business, getting the wheels turning, we were talking in the truck about how you were going to school and also still running this business with 4 employees or more. I just want to kind of wind it back to that, to give anybody out there thinking about starting their own business in the same situation where they're a student, or maybe they're working a full-time job wanting to start their own business. How did you juggle these two things? Is it just a matter of, put your head down and just work for those 1, 2, 3, 4 years while you're in school? Or is there, some sort of balance or some sort of strategies that you took?
I think, balance is a very tough thing. It's something that everybody always talks about. And I think the word balance, or the situation of balance, is very specific to your lifestyle, where you're at in life, your age, what your goals are. It would be very tough for me to start a business, now being 26 years old and having the responsibilities of, owning a house and having payments and, hopefully getting married in the next couple of years and thinking about kids. That would be a lot of added stress. Whereas when you're 16 to 20 years old, I lived at home. So worst case, if my business didn't do well, I don't have any major bills to pay. I always have a roof over my head. My mom cooked dinner every night. I'd come home at the end of the day and there'd be dinner on the table. So I'm very thankful for that. But that gave me the flexibility and the confidence to do probably a lot more things than the average person would want to do when they're first starting a business. And also I was young. I'm still young at 26, but you can work 18 hours a day. You can do quotes until 3 a.m. and go to bed and go to class at 9 a.m. and be fine. It's definitely, obviously any business, they always say it's a 10-year uphill battle. And I think that's normally pretty true. I think you could turn into a 5-year uphill battle if you're really willing to grind and get it done, which is what I did while I was in school. But I also recognized that it was important to learn from my schooling experience, learn from the co-op experience and the other full-time job I had after school, because I knew that all those assets that I was learning, I can put into the day-to-day life of my business in the future, which is what I do now. There's not a day that goes by now that I don't recall something that I learned in school or at my previous job. So all those things are definitely beneficial. But like I said, I think I kind of did it at the right time. I don't know if I knew it was the right time when I did it. I just wanted to start it then. And looking back, it would be very hard to get where I am now if I was starting at 26 years old. There's a lot of other priorities in life now that were not a priority back then.
Right. And going back to your schooling, the job that you're doing in co-op, whatnot, is there anything from that experience and that education that you can point to and say, man, I'm so happy I learned that before I went all in with my business?
Yeah, so I think school was great. The architectural engineering program at Mohawk is fantastic. The 2 guys in our office now went to school for the same thing, and a lot of guys in the construction industry start there as well, because it gives you good base knowledge. But the specific place that I did my co-op, I can't talk about it enough, how that really shaped me, not only as a person, but as a contractor, as an individual in construction. I learned everything that I know now from that in terms of project management, estimating, coordination, dealing with sub-trades. And, I've been doing it a lot now in my business for many years, where we're getting into large scale projects that are, $500,000 or $1 million. And I'm using all those skills and developing them and learning things every day. But it still goes back to that base knowledge that I learned in my co-op at that employer. And we still have a great relationship with that employer that I work for. and I know all those guys still, and we do, $500,000 of work for them every year. So if I could point to one thing that's really made my business successful, or at least has taken some of the stress away, knowing that there's always work out there of some sort and there's always mentorship still, it would be that experience. I think I learned the most from that, and I don't think we would be where we are today if I didn't have that knowledge.
In our truck ride, you talked a lot about relationships that you have in the industry, especially in the specific area. I want to turn that to subcontractors, and I know we discussed this in the truck, finding that right subcontractor. For somebody getting into more of that work where they're installing, things that are out of their scope of work that they need to subcontract out, how do they go about finding that subcontractor, finding that right subcontractor, and moving forward with them to build that relationship?
So I think when you're starting out, we've developed great relationships with very select sub-trades over the years, and now we only have one guy we go to for irrigation, one guy we go to for electrical, one guy for gas, one guy for carpentry. But these people know how we work. We know how they work. They're our family. They're our friends. They're our brothers, figuratively speaking, obviously. But it's just a great relationship because we know what we expect from each other. We don't question price. We know what the client's expecting, and it's just a great, it's a seamless transition from plan to completion on the project. When you're starting out, and we did the same thing, it's taken years to get to that point of having one guy that it's like, here's who we're working with. We don't want to work with anybody else. If you want us to work with somebody else, we're not really interested in the project. It takes years to develop that. We worked with a number of, electricians, a number of gas guys, because sometimes you can't use the most expensive guy when you're starting out. You just have to fit a client's budget, and maybe you forgot that you have to move an electrical plug before you start your deck. So now, you're calling somebody at 7 p.m. and there's only a select number of guys who will get a cold call at 7 p.m. and be there for 8 a.m. and probably not the guys you want to work with a lot, but sometimes you're forced to do that, and you make it work. But then you develop that skill set over the years of dealing with people and dealing with sub-trades and managing the projects. And you make it easy for your sub-trades, and you pay them on time, and you don't question prices, and you recognize that the value that they're providing you in the service goes a lot further than saving, $400 or $500 on every job. And that's how you get where we are with a select number of trades that are very close to us. And, they're on multiple of our sites every week. They have a crew, minimum, each of them has a crew on our jobs all year long. So that goes a long way as well in terms of being able to push them when we need to. Them help us out, we help them out. And in the end, it's just everybody's working together to be successful. And, everyone has the same end goal.
Moving from subcontractors to employees, can you just give a quick breakdown of how many employees are here and how many crews, and what does that look like?
Yeah, so right now we're give or take 25 employees. We have 2 full-time guys in the office, one guy who focuses more on residential estimating and coordination with some design work, and one guy who focuses more in the commercial estimating and coordination, and then I'm kind of between both of them, managing all of our projects, both commercial and residential. And then in the field, we have 4 construction crews, 3 of which are basically strictly residential, 1 of which is mostly commercial. And then we also have a crew grinding and painting fire hydrants for the city of Hamilton that we have a contract for the next 5 years to do. We also have a crew out prepping and mulching city parks for the next 5 years, which we have a contract to do. And then there's always random things in between where, we're waiting to do 400 square feet of sod on a project to finish it off because it's been raining for a week and we have to let the ground dry out or something. So, our 2 office guys who have both previously been in the field for us, which is nice, they'll hop in a truck, they'll go figure it out. So, we have 4 crews, 25 guys, tons and tons of stuff going on every day here at 3 Seasons. It's hard to explain the amount of work that happens in a day. We have minimum 8 to 10, if not 12 projects on the go at any given time. Some of which where we're going gangbusters, getting our scope of work done. Some of which where we've been there for a month already, and now our carpentry guy is there for 3 weeks building a pool house, and then we go back. Some where, it's mostly sub work. Maybe if it's a pavilion in a backyard with a deck and we have our carpentry guys there. We've taken care of the permits and maybe a bit of excavation and a walkway, but now the rest of the job is for them. So between that and a similar instance in commercial sites where maybe we did a bit of work and now it's up to a playground installer to build the park before we have to go back for a month, there's minimum like 10 or 12 projects always in the works and full steam ahead. So there's a lot going on, but we're very efficient. We get things done very well in terms of management, coordination, but it just goes back to having the experienced guys who've come up with a company. They know what it's like to be in the field, and now they're managing things, so they know how a day on site goes. They know the issues they can run into. They know the efficiencies, the things that take a little bit longer, and the great trades we have. Like, we'll go to bat any day for our trades. We'll help them out. They'll help us out, and it goes a long way in getting things done, properly and on time.
I just want to take a moment from today's episode to thank IQ Power Tools for being a sponsor of today's episode. This episode is brought to you by IQ Power Tools, the firm that builds smart, tough, award-winning, clean-cut concrete and masonry power tools that eliminate dust. Eliminating dust from your job site is smart, it saves time, it saves money, and it saves lives. Keep your job sites safe and healthy for you and your crew, as well as the neighbors and the homeowner around you, and look professional while you're on the job site with these IQ Power Tools dust eliminating systems. Visit them at iqpowertools.com and learn how to implement healthier and more efficient work practices for your next project. And give them a thanks on their social channels at IQ Power Tools for sponsoring the How to Hardscape podcast. Now back to our episode. Big thing for you from talking to you was employee retention. The things that you kind of, especially in today's labor force, like what is setting you apart from somebody going elsewhere to work? What's different about 3 Seasons?
So it's funny, maybe not funny because everyone's having the issue, but you talk to anybody in the landscape industry especially, but any construction, pretty much anywhere, retail, anything right now with COVID, it's extremely hard to find people. And everyone's growing, everyone's super busy right now. It's tough to find new employees. Honestly, we have never had that issue. And I don't know exactly what it is. I mean, I can tell you what it is, but in the end, it's also the fact that we haven't grown larger than we could comfortably grow. So it's not like we're trying to blitz off finding like, oh no, we need 10 guys in 3 weeks for these extra crews. Like that's going to be a problem if that happens. So we haven't done that. We've grown naturally to comfortable positions and comfortable sizes every year as we go. But similar to how we get all our work now, finding people is the same as that. It's all referral based. If you have 10 guys here who love their job every day, and they can see that when they're foreman they'll be driving a nice 2021 company truck, and they have benefits and vacation time, and everyone's happy, and you have a great culture, people will come. Because there's a ton of companies out there that you talk to any one of their employees and they hate being there. They've been there for 2 years and they don't see themselves being there for any more than another 2 years. And there's a reason to that. Sometimes it's the employee. Like if someone's been to 8 companies in 8 years, well, the constant thing here is the employee, so they've got to fix something about what they're doing. But a lot of the times it's somewhere in between. But what we try to push here is culture. I mean, I'm 26. We have a fairly young company. Our oldest guy here is 31 or 32. And we grow with our employees. As people have experience, we'll add another crew so that somebody can become a lead hand, somebody can become a foreman when they're ready to. We'll be adding another crew, if not 2 crews next year, just naturally because there's 2 or 3 guys we have here right now that are like extremely ready to be foremen and have proven they're ready to be foremen, and we've given them 3 months where hey, you go run these small jobs, see how it goes, let me know what we can fix, let's work on this together. And they knocked it out of the park, so I have no doubt that they'll be good. But just between that and growing together, keeping everybody involved, keeping everybody accountable, the fact that I'm still probably one of the hardest working people that we have in the company. Probably goes a long way. The guys see that I'm working hard every day. You know, I'm out at meetings till 10 p.m. at night. I'm installing mulch at a city park by myself all day in the heat. Like, guys will go to bat for you, and guys will work hard for you and work hard for each other when they see that everyone in the company is doing the same thing. And we just preach long-term growth. I try to explain things to guys like, hey, we have to be on site till 7 tonight because it's going to make it so we don't have to work on Saturday. We get a nice, easy start to the week next week, and guys buy into it. You know, we have a clean image. We have a nice, organized shop, new trucks, new machines. So just everything combined. Like, I couldn't pinpoint one specific thing, but in general, I think the word would be culture and having everybody on the same page, having everybody buy into a system. Like, we think of ourselves as a team, and if you look at, you know, a Stanley Cup winning NHL team, they win that cup because they've had years of the core guys doing really well. They've had good coaches, they've had good mentors, good systems in place, and, you know, owning a business, especially a landscape construction business where you have teams of guys out working on crews every day, it's not much different than a sports team. So I think over the years we've just had more and more guys come here looking for a good opportunity, and we take care of them, and we give them the opportunity that they're looking for.
With employees, do you have set periods of time or even like throughout the year where you'll sit down with them and you'll talk to them about what their expectations are, where they want to be in a certain amount of years, so that you know that, and to be able to also like let them know the vision and what they can grow into? Is that like, or is that kind of just, if you see them on a job site, they're by themselves, you can talk to them a little bit, kind of pick their brain? What's your mindset about like informal versus those formal conversations?
Yeah, it's probably a little bit of both. I think it depends on the employee, and I recognize that some employees thrive in that more formal meeting setting to put their ideas out there, whereas other employees will, you know, tense up in those meeting settings, not say anything. But then if I have a conversation with them as I'm checking into the site for 10 minutes, that'll go a long way. So it's about knowing your employees, knowing what gets everybody going every day, and motivates them. But we usually do a more formalized meeting probably twice a year before the season, and as the season's coming to an end, you know, or close to coming to an end at some point in the mid-fall. But I meet with our foreman every day at 6:30. We go over a plan for the day. We go over some random coordination things and equipment and just touch base so that, you know, hey, we're going to be done a job today at 2. Does Evan's crew need a hand for a couple hours because we're swinging by the site anyway? Does he need a hand finishing something up? So little things like that and just working together. But in terms of the growth plan or opportunities, we're a pretty open book here. Like, you know, my computer's open all day at my desk in the office. The guys will often hop on my email to look something up, or like we're not hiding anything here. I try to be pretty open with the employees about the opportunities that will present themselves if, you know, they continue to work hard, if they continue to show up and learn things from these other experienced guys. And I think everyone that's here now has seen that come to fruition, because it's one thing to say it, and then like it's a problem if you say something all the time and 5 years later it's still not happening. It's never going to happen. But, you know, 3 or 4 years ago, I said to some of the core guys, I said, hey, here's what we need to do. This is the goal for the next couple of years. We're going to get there. And then at that point, then we move to this step, and this is how we keep growing. And at that point, let's reassess. Okay, everybody's older now. They have families. What do you guys want out of it? What does your day want to look like? Do you want to be home at 5? Probably. So how do we shape things around that? As you get older, you don't want to lay interlock every day. So once you're at the stage where, you know, the company's ready and you're ready to be more of a managerial position and not a foreman, then let's make sure that we have enough crews that your day can be driving around to sites, checking in, being there for key days, like if we're pouring a foundation or something, but more of a supervisor position or a management position. And, you know, we'll make any job title that somebody wants, as long as it's effective, it benefits the company, it keeps them happy. But we try to, you know, keep everybody tied into the plans, and have probably more informal conversations than anything. Like, you can ask the guys, I'll often stop by sites and talk to the foreman and stuff. But then on my way out, I'll pull somebody aside and say, hey, I just want to let you know, I really appreciate the hard work you're doing. Like, it doesn't go unrecognized. I know that you're probably one of our best laborers. You've never once had a day off. You've always showed up. If we've asked to work Saturdays, you're always the first guy there, last guy to leave. So it's important to recognize all those things as well as you grow, because sometimes the owner can lose touch of what's happening in the business. And I have no doubt that one day, if we have 200 employees, I will. But the important thing is to have the people under you that don't lose touch in that, and have those key people. Because a little conversation with an employee or a team member goes a lot further than you would think, for sure.
I like that you mentioned, like, you've set these goals with your employees and they've come to fruition, so that the people, not necessarily below them, but like the laborers, actually have something to look up to, that if you make that promise to them or you've made a goal with them, they've known from the past that, it's come to fruition for somebody else. So it's likely that if they do ABC, they're going to get to the next point.
Correct, exactly. And it's about individual growth, but it's the fact that 5 or 6 people trying to grow as individuals will turn into, company growth and success for everybody in the long term. It's a lot of fun. We have a lot of great guys. I love all the guys here. They're like family. I would take care of them any day. It's a really, really good group here, and everyone has fun. Everyone's smiling all day. If we have to work till 8 o'clock one night, everyone's there to do that. They love that. Nobody's complaining. Everybody knows there's days that are going to suck in the landscape industry when it's raining, but you still got to work, or a tight access job. And it's like, well, today we're moving 75 wheelbarrows. So, but everyone's there for it. It's all I can say is it's a lot of fun. Everybody loves coming to work every day.
Definitely. And Chris, a few more questions here as we kind of wrap things up. Branding is obviously important to you. We talked about how a couple of years ago you rebranded. We talked about the logos on your trucks. Can you talk to me about the importance of branding, the clean look of the trucks? Like you said, you got a fleet of new trucks. Just talk to us about the importance of branding, what that means to you in 3 Seasons.
Yeah, so, when I was starting out, we went through a few logos because we were small and nobody really knew our name a ton where it mattered. And you do the thing where you go online and type in, free logo creator, and you find one that you like and you custom tailor it. But a couple of years ago, we really were doing well, but we wanted to not get to that next level, but just set ourselves in the same category as, 4 or 5 of the other companies around here that we really look up to and admire. And we want to be one of those companies that other small guys in a few years can look up to and be like, wow, I really want to be like those guys in the future. So we did a rebrand with a local company in Waterdown who's done a ton of stuff for other landscape contractors, and we saw the great stuff that it did for those businesses, and the great process it was, and it was definitely a lot of money at the time, but honestly within a month we saw that return for some reason. And branding is one of those things that everybody thinks they know a lot about. Anybody can go on Google and find a good logo, or, put logos on a shirt or a truck, and they think they're doing a great job. But it truly does take a professional who does that all the time to step back and look at your stuff and give you ideas that honestly, like, I never would have thought of, or the little things in the logo or a brand that you don't think of in the day-to-day because you're busy and making money and it's all great. But those little things that make a big impact long run, like the font style or the color, or where your logo is on your truck, or how you present yourself. So everything in our brand is kind of tied to this clean, nice image, whether it's our shop being organized, our brand new trucks, our new machines, our brand on our trucks, on our job signs, like everything's the same. And in marketing, anybody who knows anything about it will tell you the key to getting your name in people's heads or having people contact you is, the number of impressions. So if you hear something on the radio and then you hear it on TV and then the internet, you hear it in enough places or see it in enough places, it's going to get ingrained into somebody's mind. we're not so focused on that side of it, but what I did want to focus on is our image and what we present ourselves as a company, and making sure that when people see our trucks, when they see our site signs, when they see our guys working on site and they're all wearing nice shirts, they see our machines on site and they're all nice and clean, they see our shop, anything, our business cards, our website, everything ties in together, so that no matter where a client or a potential client or even one of our employees or future employees goes to look, everything looks the same, everything ties in together, and the image that you're putting out there and what you're preaching that you want to do is actually what you're doing. Because then you can go into a job site and the work you're performing and the quality you're putting in matches everything else the client's seen to date. And that's really, really key. But the rebrand we did a couple of years ago changed our business for sure in a really good way.
All right, Chris, I've prepared you for this one. What is a horror story you've experienced anytime in your business and any sort of aspect? What is something that kind of, just a horror story in particular that you'd want to share?
Yeah, so I've been thinking about this a lot. And I said this when we were in the truck. So some guys might, depending on the size of the company and the experience, they might bring up a problem that may seem big to them, but to us, there's not really a problem that's actually a problem because of the relationships we've developed with suppliers and homeowners and leasing companies for our trucks and our servicing guys for our machines. It's like any of those little problems that would have just decimated us 4 years ago and like ruined our week, it's just not a big deal now. It's more just, okay, this happened. How do we resolve it? What can we do to get it done efficiently and keep everybody happy? Let's just get it done. And then I try not to let any of those carry over past the end of the day, because I want to be able to sleep that night. I want to know that everybody has a fresh start the next day with either whatever the problem was that day, if it's a track that fell off the machine, if it's a flat trailer tire, if it's a retaining wall, the starter course got built 2 feet away from where it should. I either want it fixed by the end of the day, or at least know, okay, tomorrow morning, Joe's Towing is showing up to fix the trailer, or hey, our equipment guy is going to come fix the track, or first thing tomorrow morning, before you do anything, we're going to move that wall over, get a fresh start, and basically be back at zero with a fresh day. So we like to put plans in place when things happen, but when you're a certain size and you have the relationships that we do, there's no problem that's really a big problem. And that goes a long way, because your time is better spent on the things that you're good at and being successful. But in terms of actual horror stories, we don't have a lot of crazy ones, but I think, as anyone can attest to, you just get some clients, and we've had a few in the past few years. As we grow, we're very selective of who we work for, and we're blessed to be able to do that and appreciate it. But we're very selective of who we work for. But if you talk to anybody, sometimes even if you screen people and you meet with them and they seem great and maybe they give you a deposit right away, like there's just, some things that you just can't foresee. And by the end of the job, you're like, man, like, what did I do wrong here? What can I do better to avoid this in the future? And the answer is honestly nothing. But we had a client, would have been 3 years ago. So we show up, we did a design, we shot grades, I literally spent like 2 hours with this guy walking, and not to trash talk our clients, but this guy was bad. I spent 2 hours walking through the job with this guy, laying out everything, spraying it. Okay, do you want to make some adjustments? No problem, we'll take care of this, not a big deal. And then he literally sat on this job site in a chair. And this was like a decent sized job. It was, we were there for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Every day he sat there in a chair and he would comment on things, and just little comments like, oh, you should be doing this way, or, oh, that doesn't look right. And it got to the point where, at the end of it, the job was done well. But the experience we had was like terrible. It was a terrible experience. And because of how he acted the whole job, it made it seem like it was a bad experience with us. Well, we came in there and did everything that we said we would do and did it very well, and the quality was great. But the amount of things that they would watch us do that was on the plan, and then the next day they'd be like, oh, you know what? Actually, I want to change this. Once or twice, sure, we'll work with you. We're there for a month. It's all good. Mm-hmm. like literally every day or two, this guy would change something like pretty major, like wall location. We were building a pond, and he was like, "Oh, let's move this over." And it's like, well, you can't just move this pond over. Like we spent a day and a half building this. We can't just pick it up and move it. So it came to a point where it's like, we just got to get this job done. We just got to get out of here. So we did, and we got paid. Everybody was fine in the end, but just one of those things. It's like, man, when we met with this guy, they seemed fantastic. We were expecting them to be some of the best clients we've worked for. It was a great area. We were hoping to get lots of referrals from it because of the area that it was in. And like, it just turned into this nightmare job where like the guys dreaded going to site because they'd show up at site, and no matter what time they got there, whether it was 6:30, 7:30, 8, this guy would be on a chair on his back porch, like ready to watch us the entire day. And you know how it is, like, not that you're trying to hide anything or do things wrong, or you're trying to keep everybody's best interest in mind and do things properly, but when somebody's watching you and grilling everything you do, it makes you feel like you're doing things wrong, even if you know that you're not, you know?
Yeah.
And that would be my horror story, is just that one stands out as like, there was nothing we could have done differently. There's nothing we could have done better. Because sometimes when things happen, you only have yourself to blame, no matter what it is. If an employee quits, if an employee hates working here, if somebody hits a truck in the yard at the end of the day, it's like, okay, well, yes, that shouldn't happen, but why did that happen? And you look back and it's like, well, somebody hit a truck in the yard, they were working 5 days a week, plus a Saturday, 12 hours, they're super tired, they were short a guy because he was off sick. So it's like, recognize that these things happen because of other things that happen. But in this situation, we reflected on that, and it's like, there's literally like nothing we could have done better. And I'll be the first to admit if there's a mistake we made or something we could do better next time, but there's nothing we could do. So it kind of scared me a little bit, because as we grow, and in the future, as we have full-time sales guys and designers who go out and meet people and maybe don't have the same mindset when they're talking to people that I do right now, because I obviously want to book projects in and do cool stuff, for lack of a better term, but I'm also psychologically judging these people to make sure that they're people we want to work for. Are we a good fit for them? Are they a good fit for us? But as we grow, what can happen is the people in the office are more focused on just making the sale and booking projects and not thinking about the repercussions of it. So that one scared me a bit, because I was the one who did the whole process, and that still happens. So as we grow, it's something we're going to be mindful of, that it's not all about booking in that $200,000 job. It's like, recognize that it's better to book in that $20,000 job with a fantastic client who's going to pay you and be super happy and refer you to 20 people, than it is to book in that $200,000 job for some jerk of a client who's going to trash talk you for the rest of his life. So that would be my horror story. So
really quickly then, red flags that you notice when you're first meeting that client that tells you, okay, we're probably not a good fit.
So like we talked about before, when you're first starting out, or the economy's slow, or you're looking for a lot of work, you'll kind of say yes to anything. And everybody has to at some point. Like, even we still do things that when we actually get to doing it, I'm like, oh man, why are we doing this? Why do we say yes to this? But in the end, it usually works out. But red flags, like for us anyway, and it's obviously, it's different for every business. The area you're working in, the type of people you're working for, the type of job, the time of year, like there's so many variables. But for us, instant red flags, no matter what, would be somebody who right away, before you've even been there for 5 minutes, is like, oh, can I pay cash and save the tax? I got somebody who got a buddy at a building supply place. I'll hook up the materials. You guys just show up. Can you start in 2 weeks? Just little things like that you come to realize over time, is like, as soon as somebody has that mindset, it's like, you know what? Unfortunately, we're not the guys for you. There's probably somebody out there for you.
Definitely.
And you're going to get a great job done from somebody else, but it's just not a good fit. So things like that, and just general psychological traits a little bit. Like we talked about in the truck, as a business owner, and as anybody who's listening to this knows, you wear 50 different hats a day. Like, yes, you got into it to build landscapes and own a business, but all of a sudden you're a psychologist, you're a teacher, you're a mentor, you're a mechanic, you're a machine operator, you're a dad, a husband, a family member, an office manager, an operations manager, a coordinator, manager. It's like you're doing all these things. So you get to be able to not judge people, but realize very quickly when you're on a site meeting with somebody if they have the traits of somebody that you don't want to work with. And another one that I always find funny, and I don't know why homeowners do this, but I also understand that homeowners don't often talk to a lot of contractors, and I take it for granted that I talk to thousands of people every year, so I'm decently good at it, and I know what to look out for, and I know the things to say and how to present myself. But we had this client last year. We didn't end up working for them, but I get there, and like before I could even say my name, they were like, right off the bat, just want to let you know we've had a terrible experience with 8 contractors from basement to roofing to windows and doors, so I don't want any of your typical contractor BS. And I just like kind of laughed it off and kept talking to them. But in my head, I'm like, okay, if you've had an issue with 1 or 2 contractors, like maybe it's you, maybe it's them, maybe it's somewhere in the middle, who knows. If you've had 8 contractors here, like unfortunately the issue is you. There's, yes, there's bad contractors out there, but 8 contractors doing 8 different types of work on your house, somebody's got to be good. So the issue is you, and I don't want to be that 9th contractor that you talk about to other people.
Right. Or they're choosing the cheapest option, and that's what they're getting, and that's not your business.
Well, that's the problem too. Yeah. We're definitely fair with our pricing. We try to price based on the value that we provide, the service, the quality, the relationship we're going to build with our clients for years to come. Like, clients always ask us about warranty. Well, yeah, there's a standard warranty that we provide, but like let's get a good relationship going here. And in 10 years, if you call me back and say, hey, you guys did our job 10 years ago, we were super happy, we're here now, we're about to sell the house, there's like 10 square feet of interlock that sank over 10 years. What am I going to do? I'm going to send somebody there next week to fix it. And it's hard to preach those, I don't know, value added services, for lack of a better term, but just relationships that you'll build with these people over the years. It's hard to preach that and explain to people what you'll provide, because in the end, homeowner Joe is looking at a quote from A, B, and C contractor, and price is probably a big factor. What we're finding more these days is a lot of homeowners have said to us, hey, we'd love to work with you. You're a little bit more expensive than somebody else, but I got a really good feeling when we met with you. You got back to us promptly with a detailed quote. Everything was broken out. You gave us a little concept design at no charge. So we have a really good feeling about working with you. And then we'll send them to some previous projects and meet with some previous clients. And that will just secure the fact that, hey, we're here for the long run. You can call me in 10 years. I'm going to pick up my phone. You can call my cell. You can call me at 9 p.m. at night. It doesn't matter. We're going to take care of you. Let's do this job together. It's going to be something we can both enjoy for a long time. And that's really what we're here for.
Definitely. Well, Chris, thanks for having me out to the shop, to the yard for that ride along. And this is the first episode of doing these interviews in person. So I do appreciate your time and having me out. But I do have one last question that I also kind of gave you a little bit of prompting before. But what is that one thing you know now in your business that you wish you knew from the very start?
Yeah, that's a good question as well. I was thinking about it. There's not any like little thing that I wish I knew, because I feel like I had a good head on my shoulders and saw my family doing businesses themselves, and I knew those little issues like, oh, it's gonna be hard to find employees. It's hard to find work sometimes, or clients are annoying, that type of thing. I think honestly, to like current date now, what I know that I wish that 10 years ago in high school, or even when I just started taking it really seriously and focusing on growth new, is that, and it's hard to tell if it's like this in other businesses, but the landscape industry specifically, I wish I knew like how many other offshoots of landscaping you had to be an expert in to be successful. Like we started out, or when anybody starts out, you want to build beautiful patios, you want to build a backyard with a water feature and make people happy and obviously make money and be successful. But like I'm finding myself now, it's like all of a sudden I have to be an expert in like lease management and, okay, how long do we keep a truck? When is it at its peak value when I can resell it based on the kilometers and the condition and how we've used it? Like all these little things, it's like, I didn't expect to be a mechanic or somebody who has to learn how to buy trucks and sell trucks at the right time and buy pieces of equipment and skid steers and what equipment do we need for this job, and is this valuable for everything? Can we actually get away with getting something cheaper that's better in the long term? So all these little things that owning a business, and specifically in the landscape industry, I think that you don't realize when you're getting started you're going to have to get into later on. Even things like in the winter, like you become a flippin' weatherman every day. Like I'm checking the Weather Network and other apps 20 times a day in the winter because you never know what can happen with snow. So you just get into to sum it up, I wish that I knew then how many other areas of expertise I had to get into to be successful in the original like base expertise goal of being a landscape contractor, quote unquote, you had to do, so that I could start learning some of that at the beginning, at least slowly, or talking to some other guys about those things. Because we always had a great relationship with other contractors where I could call somebody I knew and say, hey, we're doing 1,000 square feet of interlock in the next couple of days. We've never done that much before. What do you guys use to make sure that everything's sloped properly? Or when you have to encounter multiple slopes and there has to be a little swale to direct water away from the pool deck, but also the house and the cabana. Things like that I talk to guys about. I wish that I'd also asked them, hey, like, what do you guys do for your trucks? What, do you keep them forever? Are you going to run them into the ground? Do you flip them? What about guys? Like, what do you do for benefits? Like all this other stuff. So, and it's fun because that's the part of the business that I love, is running a business and the operations and keeping people happy and figuring out problems and building cool stuff. But I think that anybody starting a business should also recognize that there's a lot more hats, and like very important hats, that you have to wear later on in the business that you don't even have to think about for the first like couple years. And that's why when owners step back from the day-to-day operations, it's also because maybe they're getting older over time and they don't want to be here for 12 hours. But it's also because there's other important things to running a successful business than just the day-to-day operations. Like insurance policies and lease management, like I talked about, and benefits and keeping guys and, company logos and like branding and making sure everybody's happy and marketing. So it's like, you understand when you see bigger businesses with guys that, are owners that aren't really involved anymore, and you understand why. It's not because they're sitting at home. Well, sometimes it might be, but hopefully not. It's not because they're sitting at home. It's because they're doing those important jobs that you don't see on a day-to-day or even like month-to-month basis. But it's those things that really propel your business to succeed later on.
Definitely. Well, Chris, thanks so much for this. If you want to find or learn more about what we did on this day, there's going to be videos on our YouTube channel. I Am a Hardscaper on YouTube. But Chris, where can our audience go to see more about Three Seasons? What you've got going on?
Yeah, so our website, 3seasonslandscapes.com, our Instagram page at 3seasonslandscapes. Check us out, give us a ring. We're happy to talk to anybody, other contractors who might have questions. We love interacting with all those people and all of our other brothers in the hardscape industry. So lots of fun.
Thank you for listening to today's podcast episode. Go check out Chris at 3 Seasons Landscapes on Instagram and everything that they've got going on over there. And check us out on our social channels. Let us know if you would want to be a part of one of these day in the life episodes where we're going to be shooting some video footage on site, at your shop, and even doing a podcast episode for this. Right now, we're only doing them in Ontario for the time being. But if you are interested in getting in touch with us, reach out to us on our Instagram account. That's the best way to get at us, at How to Hardscape, to set up one of these. And we love it if you subscribe to our podcast, left us a rating and review, of course, as well as check out at IQ Power Tools while you're over there on Instagram. They brought you today's episode with Chris of 3 Seasons Landscapes, and we look forward to meeting with you next week on the How to Hardscape podcast.